Hello and welcome to BYJU'S IAS. Before we start off, a small announcement. Tomorrow being 2nd of October, it is Gandhi Jayanti, so we would not have the Hindu analysis as the BYJU'S offices will remain closed. Let's get started and look into the first article. The first article says, time to shift focus to the maritime sphere. This article speaks about India's continental approach and the stress along the land borders. It also suggests that we need to strengthen on the maritime front as well. On the continental front, we have adversaries on the northwestern frontier, and that is in the form of Pakistan. And when it comes to the northeast, what we have is China as one of our adversary. Looking at the tensions along the border, it looks like the reconciliation process between these two adversaries and India is going to get tough, and the conditions are bleak as well. First, let us take the example of China. What happens when it comes to China? We have the line of actual control. There is increasing cases of tussle and turmoil as well, and this continues unabated. China has begun to push its territorial extent. In fact, has also said India that line of actual control which was present in 1959 is not same, and it is still expanding when it comes to its own perception. It is neither wanting to end it nor it does not want to go back to the status quo as well, but continues to be aggressive territorially, expanding its claims. And what we might see is that this relationship between India and China cannot remain normal after this tension eases out between India and China. So we did not fire a single bullet until now, but now what we have is soldiers being killed, and India cannot trust China in the near future is what is the first part of this article. The second part of the article speaks about Pakistan as well. So we have tensions along the line of actual control with China. So what is Pakistan doing right now? It is violating the ceasefire. So we have ceasefire violations that is being reported from Pakistan as well. So then we also have the issue of infiltration. Pakistan has a simple philosophy of making India bleed through thousand cuts. Why? Because they do not believe in the conventional war. They know that India is far superior when it comes to the conventional war. So what do? They infiltrate non-state actors into the union territory of Jammu and Kashmir, and that is what is serving their purpose, is what Pakistan believes in. So Pakistan has even altered the political map recently as well. India has a legitimate claim. India has a legitimate claim to make all the border issues with respect to Jammu and Kashmir. Why? Because it is an integral part of India. But Pakistan has no say in POK. Why? Because it is Pakistan occupied Kashmir and it is illegal as well. So we would be able to make any changes whatsoever with respect to the state of Jammu and Kashmir, now a union territory. But Pakistan has also changed its political map as well, and China is also not happy with this move initiated by India, because India initiated Article 370 and made changes internally. Both Pakistan and China have come together in this particular case. So what is happening here? They go to the international forum, they voice their opinion in the United Nations. In spite of all the pressure that is being put by both the countries, collusion between China and Pakistan, this particular issue is not being heard by the global community. So they have been increasing the containment strategy for India, and this is for the first time there is increasing cooperation, and that happens to be unprecedented, says the author of this article. While all this is happening, India also has another issue, and that is when it comes to Afghanistan. So what is happening in Afghanistan? We have also discussed couple of times in the recent past that United States of America will be pulling off Afghanistan. What we will also have is Pakistan having control in Afghanistan, a major say when it comes to its relationship with Taliban as well. So what we will have is trouble going forward when United States of America withdraws from Afghanistan. Why? When United States of America withdraws, what we will have is Taliban coming to power. Yes, there are talks between Taliban and the government as well, but we also know that Taliban does not believe in democracy. It does not believe in minority rights. It does not believe in women rights. When we have such a power coming and sharing with the democratic power, India would not be able to control or speak up to Taliban as well. And we also know for the fact that Pakistan indirectly supports Taliban as well. Now the question is India will have security issues when it comes to Afghanistan. In fact, when you look at China, when you look at Pakistan and Russia, they have all the converging points when it comes to how Afghanistan issue has to be resolved. Our only friend United States of America, when it comes to the Afghan issue, is now withdrawing, so we might face some of the security threats emanating from Afghanistan. This is not all. We also have issues with Iran as well. Why? Because we are close to United States of America. In case we continue with our relationship, what we might also have is certain sanctions which might be imposed on India as well. So what do we have? India, Iran has some frictions as well. This also means that all the Central Asian plans where India was planning to enter the Chabahar port, then enter Afghanistan, and through them wanted to enter Central Asia and so on, export its products, will now find a difficult task as well. So looking at all these factors, what we see is that India and all its neighboring relationship when it comes to the land border is not going good for India. Why? Because when you look at the land borders, we have been haunted by Pakistan on the northwest frontier, and when it comes to northeast frontier, it is being expanded by China as well. This is what is the continental approach. This is what is the land borders. This is what is the continental approach with respect to India. To overcome all these issues on the land frontier, we would not be able to speak up to China. Because why? Because China is not ready to listen to us and it is on the territorial expansion mode, but we can speak to Pakistan right now. Why? Because Pakistan is comparatively a weaker power when it comes to India. So what India will have to do is speak to Pakistan about the Kashmir issue, open its lines up, and what we will require is more talks that has been initiated by the Director General of Military Operations conducted via the hotline. So the author says, because we have northwestern frontier which happens to be Pakistan taking control of it, we have issues with it. Because we also have northeast issues with China, comparatively, since Pakistan is on a weaker power, we may have to initiate talks, but for which what we require is the political will. The author currently says that India is not ready to speak. Yes, it is not ready to speak, but there is another part as well which the author might not have taken into consideration. What is it? India is ready to speak to Pakistan, but whom do we speak to in Pakistan? Is it the army that we have to speak? Is it the prime minister that we have to speak? In case we want to speak to the elected prime minister, there is fiddling with the Pakistan army as well. Whenever India has initiated talks, all that Pakistan has given us is a terrorist attack. So whom do we speak to in Pakistan? That is the major issue. Even if India wants to speak, Pakistan should stop terrorist activity. This has been said by India repeatedly, but Pakistan continues with its non-state infiltration and also terrorist activities as well. That is why India does not want to speak to Pakistan. One, because there is no government, because it is indirectly controlled by the army. Even if you want to speak to this particular army, that is not ready to accept India's call itself. So that is the major problem when it comes to speaking with Pakistan. So the political will, even if it is present, the confusion as to whom do we have to speak is the major problem. Now looking at all these aspects, what the author suggests, since the continental approach is not working, we may have to look at the other approach as well, and that approach is what he calls the maritime approach. So what is this maritime approach? Since the land borders, we are not able to control it because there is external interference, because there is external aggression, we have to control the ocean borders as well. So what do we mean by it? Indian Ocean is the only ocean in the world which has been named after a country, and that happens to be India. So India is the central part of the Indian Ocean which would be able to control the Indian Ocean. This is where we would be able to checkmate China, says the author of this article. Let me also give you another example as well. Recently, our Navy happened to intercept Chinese maritime research and survey vessel. Why? Because they had entered into our economic zone as well. They had also entered close to our continental shelf as well, and that is without our permission, without our consent, when back in 2018 and also in 2019 as well. So what we have is the Chinese maritime research and survey vessels which had actually entered the exclusive economic zone. This is what China claims. China says that they had entered for the global scientific research, but we all know for the fact why China enters. China had entered in the name of civilian research, but it usually gathers the oceanic data about the subsea and the seabed condition for its own military purposes. That is a major disadvantage for India as well. Why? Because it can be a security threat in the near future. So India intercepted it and also gave a warning to China that you might not be able to enter it even if it is about global scientific research. Since we are facing such issues from China where they are also able to collect information on the oceanic front as well, India will also have to be very active when it comes to the ocean. What should India do? When it comes to the continental boundaries, when it comes to the land boundaries, India is held by both Pakistan as well as China. But when it comes to the oceanic region, India has a vast expanse as well. India also has cooperation from couple of countries as well. So what it would able to do, it would be able to enter into close cooperation, coalition, rule setting and other forms of strategic exploration with whom? This can be with Australia, this can be with United States of America, this can be with Japan. So whenever there has been a threat with respect to the oceanic water, we might have a close connection, a close coalition where all these parties step in and we would be able to control the rise of China, says the author of this article. Now, when you visualize where India is located, it is at the center of the Indian Ocean. So, when it is at the center of the Indian Ocean, its oceanic reach is from the shore of the African waters to the Americas as well. This is what Prime Minister Narendra Modi happened to say in 2018 in the Shangri-La dialogue as well. So, when we have the vast expanse, we would still be able to control the Chinese activities in the Indian Ocean. When it comes to the continental borders, we might have the European powers or the European countries supporting India's cause indirectly, but they may not be able to come in support of India directly. Why? Because their interest is also not present when it comes to India on the Pakistan front or on the Chinese front. But when it comes to the oceanic water, we would have the European countries, we would also have America stepping in and supporting India as well. So what we will have when it comes to continental approach, they might not support India directly, but indirectly they may say some words as well. But when it comes to the oceanic sphere, what we will have is the European powers stepping in and America also stepping in and supporting India. We also have Germany, which has also recently released its Indo-Pacific guidelines, and we also have examples of France, which also bought Indo-Pacific strategy last year. When it comes to South China Sea, we know for the fact that China, because of its historical claim of 9-lines, believes that the entire region of South China Sea belongs only to China. In fact, there have been orders that have been released by the arbitration council as well that China will have to follow the international order and rule book, but China does not believe in it and China does not believe that other countries also interfere. This is where there is a concern for United States of America and also some of the powers in Europe as well. So Beijing's bullying behavior in South China Sea is infuriating United States of America and some of the European powers. So what are they doing? They are also planning to include many other countries. Why? Like Japan, like Australia and many other countries are also facing the unilateralism or bullying of China as well. So all these countries, America, European powers, Japan and Australia are ready to take on the hegemony of China as well. This is where all these powers can step in and they can also help India when it comes to the Indian Ocean. We have Chinese state that happens in the Indian oceanic routes as well. In case they happen to pounce on to India on the continental front, we can checkmate them when it comes to the oceanic front as well. Why? We have the Malacca state, which happens to be one of the geostrategical locations as well. In case they happen to choke us on the continental front, we would be able to bar them from going through the Malacca state using using our resources in the Andaman and Nicobar. To bring this into action and to make sure that such initiatives are taken in the near future, India, that is the Ministry of External Affairs, had established a new division to deal with the Indo-Pacific region. So the government of India has already initiated such steps, but they will have to look at the new emerging realities. They have to get into all form of coalitions as well, and in case there is any threat that is emanating from China, what India will have to do is to take all these challenges, consolidate these challenges, bring in the military and non-military tools, and make sure that we have a comprehensive plan for the Indo-Pacific region. Either it might be through the coalition or on its own charges, but what India will have to do is to have a Indo-Pacific comprehensive plan to counter any type of threats that might be emanating from our adversaries, is what this article all about. Now let's look into the next article. This article says, is one language enough? We had the Constituent Assembly which was drafting the constitution. One of the major things about constitution drafting was the language that was to be selected. Which language will be used for writing the constitution? Which would be our national language? All these things were being discussed, and this became one of the most controversial when it comes to the discussions in the Constituent Assembly. Why was it controversial? Because language meant many things to many people. Let's take the example. According to some people, language is very important. Why? Because when it comes to education, language learning happens and it is very good in the education sector. In case there is an alien language that is being imposed which they might not know in that particular region, it might get very tough when it comes to education. For others, it is about employment as well. Let's say, for example, if we have one single language that is implemented, and in the very same language we have the central civil services examination that is conducted, there might be people who might not know this particular language and they might not be able to get employment when it comes to the central civil services. So on one side, education is an issue, the other side, employment is an issue, and language is also a cultural and linguistic pride as well. You have number of great people who would have contributed something great to that particular language. They might also have great amount of literature, they might also have great knowledge in that particular language. In case this language is not accepted and it is not part of one of the official languages, then we might also come up with a scenario where all the knowledge that has been brought about by the generation of people in that particular language might also be lost as well. So what we have is cultural and language pride. Some also look language in terms of alien culture as well. Why? Because let's take the example of English. English is not assumed to be a regional language. It is also said that English is the language of the colonizers as well. So there were some people in the Constituent Assembly debate who also wanted to show that this language of English is that of the colonizers over the natives. Hence, language also evoked a national pride as well. On one side, there was regional pride, which is one of the perceptions. On the other side, there was national pride as well, because they wanted to replace English. So each of these perceptions, each of these discussions that was happening in the Constituent Assembly is 100% fine when it comes to their own perceptions. From the very beginning of the assembly discussions, the language thus became very controversial. Why controversial? Because some of the members, after all these debates and discussions and perceptions, they said that Hindi will have to be taken as the national language. Some of them said that Hindustani will also have to be language as well. Some from the South Indian languages also said that they will have to be coming up with South Indian languages as well. Some from the Bengali speaking region, they said that it has to be Bengali as well. So there was lot of ambiguity, and there were people who were suggesting their own languages when it comes to the Constituent Assembly. In fact, there were also few in the Constituent Assembly debates who were also favoring English as well. Why? Because English happens to be an international language. So while all this was happening in the Constituent Assembly, we have PB Tandonji, Seth Govindas, Sampurnanand, K.M. Munshi and Ravi Shukla, who happens to be the leaders who strongly favored Hindi as the official language. Then we also have other members like non-Hindi areas who did not favor Hindi as the national language or as the official language, and that included T.T. Krishnamachari ji, bitterly opposing Hindi as well. At last, the Constituent Assembly accepted that Hindi, written in the Devanagari script, as the official language of the Union, and we will also be using numerals, which happens to be the International Roman. So all the discussions ultimately gave rise to Hindi being the official language, and the numericals, the numbers that we would be using, will be in the form of international numbers. While this proposal was being accepted, while this proposal was being implemented across the length and breadth of India, there was also resistance to the imposition of Hindi as well. Why? That is because there were a number of people who were non-native speakers when it comes to Hindi. Let's take for example the southern part of India, or for example West Bengal, or some of the regions when it comes to northeast as well. Because they had all these issues, that is when the government of India came up with what is called as the Official Languages Act of 1963. So the language for the Union will be Hindi, and they will also have English as the official language, and for all the other states what we will have is their own languages, that which is mentioned in the Schedule 8, they can use it as one of their official languages. This was what said after the Official Languages Act of 1963 was passed. So officially we will have Hindi as the language of the Union and English, but the regional states might also be able to select any of the languages that they prefer when it comes to their own official languages. Likewise, we have Malayalam, which happens to be the official language for the state of Kerala, Kannada in the state of Karnataka, Tamil in the state of Tamil Nadu, Telugu in the state of Andhra Pradesh, so on and so forth. But one thing that was retained in the constitution is the union government will encourage the spread of the Hindi. What is this all about? We have Article 351 of the Indian Constitution. What is it? It is a directive for the development of Hindi language. Why? Because we require one language which can become the lingua franca for the entire country. So what happens? We have number of languages, we have couple of languages in India, but there has to be one language which is connecting us all, and that language through the promotion will be Hindi, says the Constitution of India, and that has been mentioned under Article 351 of the Indian Constitution. So the central government will take all the responsibility to spread the Hindi usage, and if it is possible they will also promote it, and they will also enrich its content so that it is being used by all the people in India. This is what we have to understand. But when it comes to the loss of a language and a way of life, the article gives certain statistics. What are these statistics? According to the 2001 census, India has 30 languages that are spoken by more than 1 million people each, but some of them are still not included under the Schedule 8 of the Indian Constitution. The Constitution only lists about 22 languages and protects them in 8 schedule. Tulu, which is spoken by over 1.8 million people and has inscriptions dating back to 14th and 15th century, is still not given any status under the 8th schedule. So the author of this article voices certain concerns as well. What are these concerns? Whenever a language is not recognized by law, it means there might be people who would stop using that particular language. The language might have a sad demise as well. This is where it is asking the government not only to recognize Hindi but also value all other languages as well. It is also promoting Hindi, that is fair enough, but it also has to recognize all other languages equally, says the author of this article. And at the same time, we should cherish that particular language. We should know that language development is a historical process taking couple of years. There is knowledge base in that particular language. There is literature which can be used for the future generation. If there are no people following this particular language, we might lose a language. It might become extinct in nature, and this ultimately means all the knowledge within that particular language will also be extinct as well. So the author of this article says that we need to protect and promote all the well-evolved, endangered, indigenous languages for the future generations so that they actually understand their real root as well as culture, says the author of this article. So it is not only about one language, it is about respect for all types of language, says the author of this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article here is speaking about quad. An elaborate analysis for the same issue has been explained on 20th of July 2020 under the first topic, make the right call on Malaba. The link for the same will also be given in our description box, so kindly look into it. Now let's look into some of the preliminary practice questions. With reference to National Institute of Nutrition, which of the following statements is or correct? It is an Indian public health, nutrition and translational research center located in Chennai. The institute is one of the oldest research centers in India and the largest center under the Indian Council of Medical Research. The answer to this is 2 only. Why? Because this is not located in Chennai, but instead it is located in Hyderabad. Why have we taken this practice question? Because of the reference given under this article. So kindly remember, when it comes to the National Institute of Nutrition, it is located in Hyderabad. The institute is one of the oldest research centers and is also coming under the Indian Council of Medical Research. The institute was founded by Sir Robert Mackerson. It was originally a single room laboratory at the Pasteur Institute, Kannur in Tamil Nadu for the study of beriberi, which was also called Beriberi Enquiry Unit. The scope of the laboratory expanded to include all deficiency diseases, and around 1928 and 29 it became what is called as the Nutritional Research Laboratories with Mackerson as its first director. The facility moved to Hyderabad in 1958 and 1969, and it was named as the National Institute of Nutrition. This article speaks about the recommended dietary allowance. What is it? Let's say for example, on a daily basis, a man and a woman would require certain amount of nutrients. This nutrients that is required on a daily basis is what is called as recommended dietary allowance. They are the daily dietary nutrient intake levels which would be sufficient to meet the nutrient requirements of nearly all healthy individuals. Then the article further speaks about the estimated average requirements. So what is it? This is the average daily nutrient intake levels of the entire population. This is on the individual level, this is on the whole population level. Also remember, when it comes to the recommended dietary allowance, it is based on certain factors as well. What are these factors? It includes gender as one of the factors. For example, a male or a female might have different intake capacity. So the nutrient capacity for a male is totally different from that of a female. Then we also have a body weight as well. Let's say for example, a man who's weighing around 80 kgs might require a more of nutrients than what is required by a man who weighs around 60 kgs. So another important influencing factor is the body weight. Another important factor is the physiological factor. Let's say there is a woman who's going through menstruation or pregnancy and there is a lactating woman. They might require additional nutrients more than the normal times. Then finally, let's say for example, there is a person who actively engages in sports activity. He might be an athlete as well. These are the people who perform on higher levels. So the nutrients once again is totally different when it comes to the athletes as well as other people as well. These are some of the factors when it comes to the recommended dietary allowance. It also makes a pointer to the reference man as well as the reference woman. So who are those? All those men who belong to the age group of 19 up until 39 belong to what is called as reference man, and they need to have a weight of about 65 kgs. And when it comes to women, they weigh about 55 kg. They will come under the reference man as well as the reference woman. So kindly remember this factual data. Previously, it was 60 kg for man and 50 kg for a woman. And when it comes to the previous data, it was 20 to 39, and now what we have is 19 to 39 years. So this was on the basis of 2010 data, and now what we have is 2020 data. So kindly remember this fact as well. Now let's look into the next practice question. Which of the following statements about Scheduled Caste and Scheduled Tribe Prevention of Atrocities Act of 1989 is correct? Primary responsibility for prevention of atrocities on the Scheduled Caste and Scheduled Tribe rests with the central government. The 1989 Act penalizes casteist insult and even denies anticipatory bail to the suspected offenders. Which of the statements are correct? The answer to this is 2 only. Why? Because it is not central government, it is state government. Why? When you look at the state list, the public order and when it comes to the police is clearly under the domain of the state list. Yes, we also have public order under the concurrent list, but police clearly falls under the state list. So because it is under the state list, it is the state government which should be able to control the atrocities. Why have we taken this practice question? Because of the reference given under this article. So kindly remember, when it comes to crimes against the members of scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, they saw an increase of over 7% and 26% in 2019 compared to 2018 statistics. It also makes a mention with respect to the SC community first. It says that Uttar Pradesh recorded the highest number of crimes against the SCs in 2019, followed by Rajasthan and Bihar. When it comes to rape against the SC women, we have Rajasthan which topped the list, followed by Uttar Pradesh and Madhya Pradesh. Now when it comes to the ST community, Madhya Pradesh recorded the highest number of cases against the STs, followed by Rajasthan and Odisha. When it comes to rape, it includes Madhya Pradesh as the top one. These are some of the factual data that we may have to remember. Now let's look into the next practice question. Consider the following statements with respect to current account surpluses. It denotes that a country has more exports than imports of goods and services. It can also indicate low domestic demand or may be the result of a drop in imports due to a recession. Which of the above statements are correct? The answer to this is both. Why have we taken this practice question? Because of the reference given under this article. According to the data, it says India recorded a surplus of $19.8 billion, its current account balance in the first quarter, on top of a surplus of 0.6 billion, which is about 0.1% GDP in the preceding quarter. Why is that we have current account surplus? That is because there is a steep decline when it comes to imports than when it comes to exports. It also reflects that we have the poor state of economy which has been hit by the COVID-19 crisis. So because we have less imports, we have more exports and we have no demand during the COVID-19, that is why we have the current surplus, says this particular article. Now let's look into the next practice question. Which one of the following is not a feature of Indian federalism? There is an independent judiciary in India. Powers have been clearly divided between center and the states. The federating units have been unequal representation in the Rajya Sabha. It is the result of an arrangement among the federating units. The answer to this is D, which is not a feature. It is the result of an agreement among the federating units. Now let's look into the mains practice question. India has to consolidate its military and non-military tools, engage its strategic partners and publish a comprehensive vision document on the maritime sphere to overcome its continental limitations. Discuss. Protecting and promoting well-evolved indigenous languages will help our future generations to understand their real roots and culture. Comment. So please write all your answers on the comment section. Peer review, come up with constructive criticism. This is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.